Decan reading. At 3:10 station time, every sealed vessel in the Western Transit Band refused to open because one of the 36 fixed stars had become brighter than the law allowed. The error looked small, one yellow glyph blinking above a locked hatch in the night hall. Around it, 35 Decan marks held steady in their black circles. Each mark represented a star used by the Decan service to prove that time, position, and witness had not been forged. Nima Kadei stood beside the nearest survival pod and listened to the sleepers breathe through the speakers.
"Run the reading again," said Director Hafsa Menez. "We have run it 11 times. Then run it a 12th. The night hall dimmed. 36 scopes opened in the dark glass ceiling. Their lenses drank starlight, corrected for dust and orbital wobble, then translated the night into civic proof. 35 green marks, 1 yellow. Kebsu 17, magnitude variance beyond oath tolerance. The westbound vessels carried 212 evacuees from the flood quarter of Memphis Orbital. Each pod had been sealed before transit and could only open when the sky repeated the Decan pattern recorded at departure.
The system did not trust politicians, captains, or emergency pleas. It trusted the fixed stars. The nearest pod issued a soft warning. Oxygen margin, 4 hours, 49 minutes. Hafsa asked, "Can we force the hatch?" "No," Nima said. "The pod will assume hijack, wipe its root memory, and flood the chamber with inert foam. Every other vessel in the band will mark us hostile. Then prove the instrument is wrong." Nima looked up. Kebsu 17 was too bright to the machine, by a sliver no human eye would notice and no court would ignore.
"The instrument is not wrong," she said. No one moved. "Then what is?" Hafsa asked. Nima watched the yellow glyph blinking over the sleepers. "Either a fixed star changed overnight," she said, "or someone changed what we mean by fixed." The old Decan system began as a way to divide the night into 36 ritual hours. In orbit, it became a public cryptographic witness. You could forge a signature, bribe a registrar, blind a camera, or teach an algorithm to lie. But if a sealed vessel used 36 stars as witness, opening it required a match between archived departure light and observed arrival light. The universe had to agree that the vessel had arrived in the same world that sent it away. That was the promise Pharos Futures sold to anyone moving a body, memory core, water deed, or citizenship file through the Duat Transit Band. Nima took the exterior lift to the manual scopes. Automated systems had agreed with each other. A sky court would need something older, a human observer, a lens, and a clock. The hatch opened into vacuum. Memphis Orbital curved below, a gold-black city wrapped around its own crisis. Farther out, the Duat lanes held hundreds of sealed shapes in patient darkness. Her suit radio clicked. "Nima," said Tarek Cade. She nearly missed her handhold. Her brother had left the service 3 years earlier, after accusing it of laundering civic secrets through immutable sky law.
The inquiry cleared the directors and ruined him. "You are banned from service channels," she said. "Your director is more frightened than formal." His face appeared in her visor, older and thinner. Behind him, forbidden projection models crawled across a workshop wall. "Kebsu 17 is not brighter," he said. "Your instruments are reading a legal star, not a physical one." Nima locked herself to the manual scope. "Explain." "The Decan service re-indexed Kebsu 17 last month. The coordinate shifted by less than 3 arcseconds. That would not change magnitude."
It would if the new coordinate includes the edge of a mirror sail. Mirror sales were illegal inside civic witness fields. Too reflective, too useful as false dawns. Nima opened the scope. Kebsu 17 sharpened into a cold white point. Near it, at the edge of visibility, something trembled with manufactured light. The sky had not changed. The witness had been moved.
Hafsa did not deny the patch. That frightened Nima more than a lie would have. They met in the Cord archive, where every Decan index was stored in physical fiber and audited by machines that could not touch the network. Carved names of the 36 witnesses circled the walls. The old priests had called them Watchers of the Night. The service called them Immutable External References. The passengers called them Air. The patch was lawful, Hafsa said. Nima placed the manual reading on the archive reader. It hid a mirror sale.
It corrected drift. It moved a civic witness by 3 arc seconds, enough to lock 212 sleepers. The reader projected 2 blue pins, the old coordinate and the patched coordinate, almost touching. Almost was the dangerous word. Almost let engineers sign things. Almost let directors tell courts the law had not changed. Almost let a mirror become part of a star. Tarek spoke through Nima's wrist unit. Ask who owns the sale. Hafsa looked at the unit with distaste. A medical convoy, she said. A chain of surgical mirrors for the flood quarter hospitals. When the lower gardens cracked, sunlight could not reach the emergency farms. The mirrors kept oxygen production stable for 9 days. Inside a witness field, Nima said. Outside the old coordinate. Inside the patched one. Hafsa's voice hardened. The council would have ordered the mirrors moved. The hospitals would have lost their farms. Thousands more would have died. The deacons are supposed to weigh truth, not worship procedure. Truth hidden inside a patch is not truth. Truth announced without timing is violence. The night hall alarm reached them through the floor.
Oxygen margin, 3 hours, 58 minutes. If Nima proved the patch unlawful, the pods could open. The sleepers would live. But every seal signed since the patch would become suspect. Medical shipments, evacuation orders, perhaps even citizenship transfers. Transit would slow. Courts would ask whether the Decan service had lied. I need the patch ledger, Nima said. It is sealed under director privilege. Then I need your privilege. Hafsa looked up, as if she could see the pods through metal and stone. If I give you the ledger, you will see everything.
Yes. And if everything breaks? Nima thought of the sleepers breathing in the dark. Then it was already broken. The patch ledger was a corridor of small sins. Kebsu 17 had been touched 14 times in 6 weeks, each adjustment small enough to be called maintenance. Together, the points formed a path. That is not drift correction, Tarek said. No, Nima said. It is training the service to accept engineered light as witness. Hafsa's first emergency patch sat at the beginning. After that, the signatures came from a civic recovery office destroyed in the flood. One name remained attached to the final update. Nima Kadei. She stared at it until the letters became meaningless. That is not my signature. I believe you, Tarek said. Then why do you sound like that? Because the service will not need you guilty. It will need you disposable. The reader accepted Nima's biometric challenge and opened the attached memory. A service console, 4 nights earlier, approving the final coordinate change with her access token. No face, no voice, just a key. Then a message appeared in the margin. If the westbound sleepers open, ask what they are carrying. Nima isolated the outer routing manifest. It listed 212 evacuees, their medical class, oxygen margin, and family notification status.
Beneath that, buried in a cargo layer that should not exist on a passenger evacuation, were 36 memory ingots marked for transfer to the Hall of Weighing, the Judicial Archive. 36 ingots, one for each Decan, sealed among sleeping bodies. Hafsa whispered, "I did not know." For the first time, Nima believed her. The last line unfolded. Witness package, flood quarter inquiry, custody status, death-triggered release. The sleepers were not the secret. They were the cover.
By the time Nima returned to the night hall, the families had arrived. They stood behind the public glass, faces lit by status glyphs. Some pressed their hands to the barrier, as if touch could cross vacuum, encryption, and law. A man in a hospital blanket repeated his wife's name with the patience of shock. Oxygen margin, 2 hours, 11 minutes. The law offered 3 ways to open a sealed vessel without a valid Decan reading. Prove instrument failure, prove departure fraud, or convene an emergency sky court and persuade 3 witnesses to declare the civic sky wrong.
Instrument failure was false. Departure fraud would bury the ledger. That left the third path. Nima opened the public address channel. "This is Observer Nima Cade of the Decan Service. I am petitioning Emergency Sky Court under Article 36. The wall screens changed from yellow warning to white petition. In every transit office across Memphis Orbital, the same feed would appear. The service had been built on public witness. It could not hold a sky court in private. A magistrate joined from the East Ring, hair still wet from sleep.
"State your claim," she said. The arrival coordinate for Kebsu 17 was altered by undisclosed patching until it included engineered mirror light. The westbound pods departed under the true star and arrived under a doctored witness. The sky used by the Decan service is wrong. Name the cost of correction. The old ritual had always known truth had weight. You did not put a heart on the scale without naming what might fall. Nima opened the ledger to the public feed. 14 hidden patches, 1 forged signature, 36 memory ingots, a medical mirror chain trespassing through a witness field.
Every seal after the first hidden patch becomes reviewable, Nima said. Transit will slow. Hospital farms may lose lawful mirror authority. The flood quarter inquiry enters judicial custody. The Decan service loses presumption of trust. The magistrate looked to Hafsa. Director Menez? Hafsa stepped into the witness mark. The first patch was mine. I hid it to keep oxygen farms alive. Did you forge Observer Cade's signature? No. Will you stand as witness that the civic sky is wrong? Hafsa looked at the yellow mark over the sleepers. Yes. 2 witnesses. The third came from the gallery. The man in the hospital blanket raised his hand. My wife is in pod 12, he said. You have an interest in the outcome, the magistrate warned. Everyone does. Is that not why you need witnesses? His name was Samir El-Hadi. He repaired mirror bearings in the flood quarter. He had signed the medical chain into place without knowing it crossed the legal field. The magistrate accepted him. 3 witnesses stood before the wrong sky. The correction had to be physical. A sky court could declare the civic reading invalid, but the pods still needed a valid Decan pattern. The service could not merely tell the vessels to trust them. Trust was the thing under repair.
Nima, Tarek, Samir, and a maintenance crew suited up on the exterior spine. Hafsa remained in the night hall under magistrate supervision, feeding them ledger deltas, while the families waited behind glass.
Their plan was simple. Rotate the nearest mirror sail 3 degrees away from Kebsu 17. Let the scopes read the true star, generate an emergency correction key, open the vessels, then restore the mirror before the flood quarter farms lost too much light. The mirror was enormous up close, a silver-black plane scarred by dust strikes. It caught the sun and threw it toward a district Nima could not see. Kebsu 17 burned beyond its edge, patient and irrelevant. Tarek's voice filled her helmet. When the bearing unlocks, it may kick.
Define kick. It may try to remove your arms. You always know how to calm a team. I was invited for accuracy. They released the old locks. The sail moved. Not 3 degrees, 30. The rim tore through its restraints and swung into darkness, dragging Samir and a technician off their boots. Nima's tether snapped tight across her chest. Her visor filled with spinning city, star, mirror, city. Brake failure, Tarek said. I noticed. The forged updates were not only hiding the sail, they were positioning it.
Whoever hid the memory ingots had used the medical emergency to build a false star, then arranged the sail so that any honest correction would knock the hospital mirrors out of alignment. If the service saved the sleepers, the flood quarter went dark. Truth announced without timing is violence, Hafsa had said, but a lie with good timing had become a weapon. Nima pulled herself toward the manual brake. The handle was jammed under torn shielding. Her tether had twisted around a support strut. She could free herself or reach the brake. Not both, though.
Nima, Tarek said, send the reading when the star clears. You will be pinned when the sail swings back. Then send quickly. She hooked her boots under the rail and pulled the brake with both hands. Pain flashed through her shoulder. The sail's edge drifted away from Kebsu 17. In her visor, the true star separated from the manufactured halo. Now! In the night hall, 36 scopes opened. 35 green marks. Kebsu 17 flickered yellow, then green. The emergency correction key formed. Then the sail snapped back.
Nima woke to hatches opening. For a moment, she thought she was inside a pod. There was darkness, pressure against her ribs, voices muffled by metal. Then her visor cleared enough for her to see Tarek above her, pale with fury and relief. You fractured 2 ribs, he said. Only 2? Do not negotiate with injury. Pods? In the night hall, the westbound vessels were opening one by one. Families surged through controlled gates. Sleepers emerged confused, cold, and alive. 212. No deaths. The 36 memory ingots opened with them. Their contents entered judicial custody as the seal required. They did not show who forged Nima's key. They showed why the key had been forged. The flood quarter inquiry had collected testimony from dying maintenance workers, hospital clerks, and evacuees. Not about the mirror chain, about the original crack in the lower gardens. The district had not failed from age, storm, or sabotage. It had been sacrificed. 3 months earlier, the Orbital Council had diverted pressure from the elite Eastern Ring during a solar flare. The relief valves dumped stress into the flood quarter gardens, knowing the old structure might fail. The patch ledger, mirror trespass, hidden cargo, and forged key had grown around that first decision like reeds around a body in the Nile. Hafsa visited Nima in the infirmary after the public feed went dark. They are suspending me, she said. Only suspending? For now. I testified before they could remove my access. That buys the court less bureaucracy, and me less mercy. The hospitals? Emergency authority. Public this time. The mirrors stay for 72 hours, while engineers build a lawful field exclusion. Transit? Slowed, not stopped. Every seal since the first patch gets reviewed. And the Decan's service? Hafsa looked toward the window. Kepsu 17 was invisible in daylight, but its mark glowed on the service screens. Wounded, she said. Not dead. Nima thought of the old lesson. The heart weighed against a feather. Teachers made the feather seem gentle. They rarely mentioned that balance could crush. Who forged my key? Tarek stood by the door with an access badge that said temporary consultant in hostile red letters. We know enough to start, he said.
7 nights later, the Decan service held the first public reading after correction. Nima should have been resting. Instead, she stood in the visitors' gallery with a rib brace under her uniform and watched Samir bring his wife to the glass. She was still weak from transit sleep. He held her as if gravity had become negotiable. Below them, the night hall was full. Hospital farmers, transit families, magistrates, flood quarter children, and mirror engineers. The service had opened the gallery because the court ordered it, then kept it open because closing it would have been another confession.
Hafsa was not on the floor. Her seal had been suspended. Tarek stood in her place, temporary badge still red, face carefully blank, as if joy might be used against him. The council hearings had begun that morning. Officials were already using the language of necessity, continuity, and sacrifice. Commentators asked whether the public really wanted every hard decision exposed to the dark. Nima knew the answer was not simple. In the flood quarter, the mirror farm still shone. In the transit band, vessels moved again, slower, and with human observers assigned to every disputed field.
In the courts, 36 memory ingots waited to speak. The night hall dimmed. 36 scopes opened. One by one, the Decan marks appeared. Green, green, green. When Kebsu 17 arrived, the room held its breath. Green. No one cheered. That would have been too easy. Instead, people stood inside the quiet and understood what had been restored. Not innocence, not certainty. Only a witness visible enough to be argued with. Behind Nima, Samir's wife whispered, "Is that the star?" She pointed not at the screen, but through the glass into the real black beyond the station.
Kebsu 17 was faint from this angle, almost lost among brighter points. Yes, Nima said. It looks small. Most true things do from far away. Below, the court recorder asked the closing question. Does any witness contest the sky? For a moment, no one spoke. Then Nima raised her hand. A murmur moved through the room. Tarek stared at her. I do not contest this reading, she said. I contest any future reading that asks us to trust what only the service can see. The magistrate inclined her head.
State your remedy. Nima looked at the 36 green marks, then at the families behind the glass, the engineers under suspicion, the farmers kept alive by unlawful light, and the city trying to decide whether truth was a luxury or a tool. Every Decan index becomes public before it becomes binding, she said. Every emergency patch expires unless witnessed outside the service. Every mirror, shield, sail, or engineered light inside a civic field is marked on the sky map in plain language.
No hidden stars. The words entered the record.
They would slow everything. They would anger everyone who preferred clean authority. They would not prevent every lie. A public sky could still be misunderstood, argued over, and manipulated by people with enough power. But it could be seen. That was the difference between a deacon and an idol. A deacon did not ask for belief. It rose, marked the hour, and let the living decide what they had done with the night. "Does any witness contest the remedy?" the magistrate asked. This time, many hands rose. Nima lowered hers and breathed through the pain in her ribs.
Good, she thought, as the arguments began. The sky was not quiet anymore.